Hi YouTube, I am Danny the Teach, and this is my grandmother Gigi. Today she's going to talk about getting yourself some business.
Hi everyone. It's funny how, as you listen to all that is going on in the world and the kinds of things that we need, have you ever made yourself a list of what you need in contrast to what you want? And I used to ask my students to do this if they would take a sheet of paper and it's amazing the how large the list of wants can be sometimes versus the list of needs, and you really don't know what you need. What do you need? You need fresh air, you need water, clean water, you need health, access to a health system where you are able to get the information that is needed. And I've begun to, I've always been a commercial watcher, so that I can see, just see what there is. But when I look at television now and look at the ads, I recall a word that my husband used to use, perfidious. And the way that, and I hate to say Wall Street, but it is Wall Street because Wall Street is where the money is generated. And I look at the kinds of things that they try to sell people, and they are successful at selling them. But it is so unfair that the laws that are in place to protect the public, nobody enforces these laws. And I remember when I was in school, the antitrust laws. Do they even talk about antitrust laws anymore? Because the only thing I hear all of the time that tends to promulgate, if you will, the what you need and the source of it. And there is Amazon, there is Wall Street, there is the big bank. And the thing is that the people who need things the most have least access to them. You're looking at, and I'm not going to talk about the person that everybody talks about, who is probably at the head of perfidiousness. But the thing is that the fact that everybody talks about it, but nobody does anything about it. And they're always talking about young people this and young people that. But I have yet to hear since the election how much we should be thankful to and telling the young people what a good job they did of taking advantage of what it means to be an American. They took advantage of the vote, and they put in the people that they think may be able to help them. The question that I ask all the time is, what kind of a world am I leaving for the younger people in this world? What kind of a world am I leaving for my children, my friends' children, all of the children? And I always remember when I had the students, I was I taught vocational education, and one of the things that very frequently, when some of the recruiters would come around for some of the elite high schools, um, I can remember people saying when they talked about vocational education, oh, you don't want to go into vocational education, you want to be a doctor. That is one of the largest vocations that there is. Lawyer, it is a vocation. Vocational education keeps America working. And all you got to do is, I'm in Texas now, and I don't know what the impetus was that sent General Motors to Texas, but I see all of the General Motors products that are here in Texas. And you get a chance to see that vocational education is still making America work. The people, not the people who are at the very, very top of the echelon, of course, but the people who keep these cars running, the mechanics. When you go in, you remember, and of course the younger people don't remember this, but there was a time when you would go into the gas station and there was a person who came to help you fill up your tank. They would clean your windows. They would empty the little garbage bags that you may have had in the car. And somehow it made you feel like, it made you feel worth driving. Since I'm in this wheelchair, the wheelchair is what I drive nowadays. And it's, again, it's an item that makes me, or gives me, access to mobility so that I can go and come in the house without constantly asking someone for something. And one of the hardest things for me to do is ask for something, because it means that you're encumbering somebody else all the time. And one of the things the kids used to ask me when I would first start teaching a unit, why did I do certain things and why did I try to make provisions for them? But the whole idea of teaching is that you want, you know what you really want? You want someone who can, when you get to retirement age, help to pay your Social Security. And that is one of the mistakes that I think they make, because I can remember up until it was almost time for me to retire, no one had ever said anything about Social Security or whatever have you. Social Security is a misnomer, because people who have done nothing but work, unless they worked for General Motors or something like General Motors, you don't have any Social Security. You don't have something that makes it secure when you retire. When I look at the grocery ads that come out now and see what if people only have Social Security that they're living on, they're going to starve to death, because a dozen eggs, 3 dozen eggs costs, I think, something like $6 or more than that. When I bought eggs, I used to go to the store when the ads came out, and you bought a dozen eggs and got a dozen at no cost. And it was the kind of thing that I did. And believe it or not, I would freeze my eggs. But the thing is, you have to take a little time to do things. You have to take time to go to the market. And one of the things I would like to do one time now is go to one of the markets where I used to go, because I don't know if they still do it, but they had this business that whatever the thing was that you were buying, whatever the price was that was beneath it, identifying it, you had to sell it at that price. And if I'm not mistaken, you got the item free. And then, of course, you could buy the other items. But it's something that it looks like there's always a gimmick. There's always a gimmick for something. And it's the kind of thing that when you go in, it's, how do you talk about it? Sometimes you sit down, and I guess today there was an article or something on the news, which is a joke almost, that I used to wear a sweater that said GYSB, get yourself some business. And if you take care of your own business, you don't have enough time to get into messing with other people. And you should not mess with other people unless you are willing to help modify whatever it is you tend to be getting into that isn't your business. Unless you really do care enough to want to help them modify that. Unless you want to go to the place where some changes can be made. And case in point, I just learned that the vocational center at which I used to teach, they had somehow or other changed the name to it from Etheling Crockett Career Technical Center, and they had changed it to the Ben Carson School. Ben Carson being somebody who, for some reason or other, aligned himself with the former president. And had he really, really wanted to do something munificent, the thing to do would have been to name the school that he had attended the Ben Carson. That should have been named the Ben Carson, because the school that he attended was considered a bad school, but it had produced the likes of Dr. Ben Carson, who was a renowned cardiac surgeon that you don't hear anything about anymore. And to let the youngsters who went to that school know that this is what you can do. You don't have to do the things that they say come out of this neighborhood. It's like all the things is that you hear all the time now. It's bad schools. There's no such thing as a bad school. There are people who maybe belong to and are supposed to be doing things that they're not good. But the school in and of itself is not bad, because all you got to do is you look at some of these kids who come on sometimes, little kids, who are doing things that lets you know that children want to do right and they want to learn the proper way to do things. But unless there is an adult there who will give them access to this, where are we? Where are we going? What are we doing for our children? Because our children, you know who made our children? Same one who made you. Who made you? God. And one of the things I always remember, I went to parochial schools. And that's one of the things I will say sometimes when I'm talking about me to people. And the first thing that people say is that, well, if you went to parochial schools, you had a lot of stuff. You were rich. It wasn't true. I went to parochial schools and I was, first of all, I cleaned the bathrooms, the boys' bathroom and the girls' bathroom. Now, when I tell this story, people want to say, oh, that poor girl had to clean those dirty bathrooms and worked herself to death. I didn't tell the whole story. The girls' bathroom had one commode. The nun would take you to school take you to wherever you wanted to go. Not where you wanted to go, but there was a time when it was time to go to the bathroom. So whatever grade, it was their time to go to the bathroom, they would go to the bathroom. Now again, well, how could that many kids go to the, well, it can go that many kids can go to the bathroom because there were only 10 or 15 of them in a classroom in a grade. And of course, there was one grade that had 3 classes in the classroom. So they would go grade by grade. And you were behaved, because if you didn't behave, you were in trouble. Before you got home, your mother knew that you had misbehaved. And this was before we had cell phones. And most people didn't have a telephone. We didn't have a telephone. And I'm from a family of 15. 8 of us were at home at one time. And I thought I was rich because I had everything I needed. And right now, wheelchair and all, when I wake up in the morning, I of course wake up, I open my eyes, and I wiggle my fingers and wiggle my toes. Well, I guess I woke up this morning, and God has given me another day. And whenever I find out where my iPad is or what have you, I look, I see my image, and I know I'm looking into the eyes of God. Now, how do I know that? Because where I went to school, it was impressed on me that I was created in the image and likeness of God. And so, anytime I wanted to talk to God, I didn't have to go to church, because God every day He's in my room, looks over me all the time. One time I was talking to a priest. I don't know what had happened, but the priest said to me, "Why are you wasting my time?" But what had led into this was that I was a product of Catholic schools. And he knew anytime you go to parochial schools and went to church every Sunday, the nuns, every morning, we were never late for school, because if you were late for school, you were going to be in deep yoga because you had to stay after school. And we all gathered, the whole school. You say that when you say things like the whole school, you think, oh my God, how do all of you fit in one room? Because there were only like 90 kids in the whole school. I think when I look at my granddaughter's graduating class, there were more kids in her graduating class than were in my entire 12 years of school. Can you believe it? And when we took the, whatever the test that was taken every year, the kids that went to the most Pure Heart of Mary school, they were at the top of the list. Now, I don't know how it was in the other schools, but I know that one year when it was the bishop's anniversary, they went to great pains to tell us that the colored kids, that was us. I went to schools at a time when I think I made it through Negro. We used to be Negroes when I was in early grades. And then we got to be colored. And then we got to be black. And they just call us anything they want to call us now. But, and I, being the sarcastic person that I am sometimes, as old as I am, I always remembered, you can call me anything, but don't call me late for supper. And of course, that was supposed to be a joke, but you know, be that as it may. But anyhow, back to, and now at this point in time, I'm going to stop trying to entertain you, but just talk about where are we? What are we doing for our children? What are we leaving for our children? What example are we setting for them? Are they going to be able to get jobs that pay into a social security system? Which, of course, it is not social security. It's enough to help you maybe buy a loaf of bread, a pound of meat, a dozen eggs. And I'm not joking about this in today's market. If they don't tell people about how to make money, do something for them, our children are going to be in deep yogurt because they are not being taught how to take care of themselves and their needs. We won't even talk about their wants. I was very fortunate, big family and all, because my mother, God bless her, my mother was a saint. And it's a phrase that my son tells me all the time. Mama, don't say that. But my mother told us we did not have any money, but we were never poor. And she defined that. We never went to bed hungry. We never went to bed cold. And there was always someone to tell us it's going to be all right. Now, is there anything else beside that? Not really. If you really, really want it, and you've got someplace where you can go, I can remember sitting in Papa's lap, me and one of my brothers, and Papa would read the paper to us. My dad had a second grade education, but someplace along the way, during that time, he and many other people like him, he taught himself to read. And that was true of many people at that time. But there were also many people who did not learn to read. And I used to, one of my crutches, I would say to my students, he who reads rules. And as an example, I would say, you notice how many times if you have a question, you go and ask your teacher? Well, if you can't read, teacher can tell you anything. So that there's a lot of trust built into you're not reading. But if you learn how to read, teacher's got to know how to read too, because teacher won't be able to tell you anything. But the other thing is that nowadays, I found out I can't really say that, because I found out that if you are not tech savvy, there's not much you can do. And when I mentioned how hard it is for me to ask somebody else to do something, I have finally gotten to the point where I will ask someone. And everybody out there in La La Land who hears this ever, you can say that Mrs. Livingston said she doesn't know how to do what's technical. But I found out that if I watch my third grade great-grandchildren, they'll tell me how to do anything. They'll show me how to do anything. But I have to be real fast because they don't like to repeat it. Like I told you that one time. And there you are. So, I don't think I'm going to hold you up much longer. And it sure has been nice talking to you today. Thank you.
Bye, YouTube.